So Ted, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
That's
You?
I'm doing well. We're just here for the third Realize Truth podcast. Today our guest is Ted. I've known Ted for a while. When I grew up, I knew him. He worked with my mom, and then I started seeing him about town in my older years, and we've reconnected. Yeah, and then just recently in this past year, when I started a men's group with Realize Truth. Ted heard about it and he decided to come. And at the time, I really didn't even know what I was doing. I just had this internal feeling that I wanted to be supported by other men and also be supportive to other men. And I've learned a lot about this whole movement, how it started, where it began, and Ted has showed me a lot and taught me a lot about this. So Ted, what led you to begin your journey with men's work?
I started hearing things about this in the 80s.
Okay.
Gatherings of men drumming in the forests, in the woods. It appeared to me to be very tribal
Hmm.
in a sense. So I was drawn to, look into it and find out more about it. That was sometime in the 80s. Probably towards the end of that, I actually physically started going to gatherings for men. They became available. People like Robert Bly, Robert Moore, and John Lee and Martine Prechtel. But the first one on that I went to, it was down in Alabama. I found out why I was drawn to it.
Hmm.
It was just a deep need that I had in my soul to acknowledge and know that I was part of manhood.
Hmm. And at this point in time, how old were you?
Probably, I'll be right around 30.
Yeah. Okay. And leading up to that, who were or what did it look like for you being a man? What was your
Mm.
childhood like? Did you have any mentors, any male figures in your life?
Yes, my father was not in my life. Growing up for the most part. I didn't see my father till I was, in my teens, early teens, to really see him. That whole thing was very sketchy. For the most part, I was being raised by my mom and by my grandparents, who were my father's parents.
Okay.
But my father had literally, this isn't a judgment, but had literally just abandoned his whole family.
Mm-hmm.
He went away
Okay.
from them and me and my mom, and he would come back every once in a while. Well, yeah, mentors, I guess I would kind of lean towards, in schooling, some of the men that were teachers. I was aware of them and watching them and seeing how they acted, what they did.
And so based on that, like this men's movement that you came across in your 30s, who introduced you to that? Was it a friend? Was it a colleague, coworker? How did you hear about it back then in the 80s?
No, it was me just doing research.
Okay.
I can remember seeing a picture of, I think it was just one man with a drum,
Mm-hmm.
with no shirt on, obviously in the woods or the forest or something. I think it was on Time or one of those big magazines, and it talked about something about men awakening and this whole thing. I was like, what is this about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just did research and dug around and found things and found this gathering down there in Alabama, like I said, and that was revolving around Robert Bly.
Okay.
I looked into his book, and then I read his book, got some direction for that.
And
Yeah.
who was he? Robert Bly. You said he's a poet,
Yeah,
author.
poet laureate, author. Wrote a book called Iron John,
Okay.
which was basically a men's initiation book,
Okay.
and it had to do with mythology and that sort of thing. Knights and dragons, monsters.
Hmm. Yeah, you had mentioned that to me. I think this past winter. I remember exactly when I was listening to first half at least of the audiobook, and it really spoke to me. And I sent it to two or three of my friends. Two of them actually did listen to some of it, and we were having conversations about it. And kind of like for me, it was kind of like, why didn't I know this before? Why didn't somebody tell me this? Like, why am I finding this at 35 years old? What's wrong with this picture? The initiation process you talked about in that book. What does that look like in a nutshell?
During the course of this exploration thing, I mean, I kind of looked into different options there and ended up talking to different people about this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically enough, a couple of the people were Pueblo people out in New Mexico.
Okay.
They lived in Pueblos and had initiations.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, in a nutshell, they would take a boy who had been raised by its mother
Mm-hmm.
to the age of, say, 12, like right there, close with its mother, and they kind of yank the kid away from the mother and bring it into a men's space. When the boy was with the mother, they spoke a different language. They spoke a language of women.
Mm-hmm.
When he was brought into the men's initiation, there was a whole different language, and it was a men's language.
Okay.
So that was, a big part of the initiation.
Mm-hmm.
And he would spend, a year there in that men's group. And I had heard even more radical situations with initiations of boys to men, like in Africa, where they would do a similar thing. The boy was being raised by the mother, and then all the tribal men would come and, in the middle of the night, steal the boy away. And this kind of shocked me in a way, but it was, yeah. And bring him into the forest, into the jungles, tie him to a tree,
Mm-hmm.
and put chunks of meat all around him.
Wow.
And then they would bring a lion in,
Mm-hmm.
and there'd be, 50 tribal people there, and this one boy tied to the tree,
Mm-hmm.
and the lion's coming after the kid thinks it's coming after him, but it's actually coming after the meat.
Mm-hmm.
And the tribal people would all have, arrows or whatever to take this lion down before it got to the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And what that would do was, that was the initiation.
Okay.
He became a man.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into different options there.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that I'd want to do that one, but that one really stuck with me. And again, I was drawn to these things. Male initiation. Well, if you're growing up in the hood,
Mm-hmm.
the initiation might be lighting something on fire or
Mm-hmm.
something, or,
Stealing a car.
yeah, doing things like that, hurting somebody, or,
Mm-hmm.
things that did not appeal to me whatsoever. And I saw it. It was it would have been available to me, but didn't like it at
So,
all.
so you touched on the, I guess, more in the United States, East Coast, maybe whatever was available, in the inner city. Did you grow up in inner city at any point, or?
I grew up, yeah, again, I look back at my life. I grew up literally in the ghetto.
Okay.
My mom and I lived in the projects.
Okay.
If you go by it now, still there. There are bars on the doors and windows.
Mm.
When I was growing up, most of the kids were, carrying switchblades and chains, baseball bats.
Mm-hmm.
There was, goodly amount of drug use there.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side of that, my grandparents
Mm-hmm.
lived like way upper middle class America.
Okay.
They were, yeah.
So there was a contrast.
So there was a constant, you know, living in the dark, living in the light, both those things.
Mm-hmm. What did the households look like in the ghetto?
The households.
Was there how were there families?
For the most part, it was mothers with boys
Okay.
or girls. Not a lot of fathers there
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Yeah.
So a lot of the boys that were there, their ideas of being a man were, being tough.
Mm-hmm.
Let's beat somebody up.
Yeah.
Let's light something on fire.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked a lot about how this has threaded throughout, you know, history, throughout modern history. You kind of touched on like today's day and age, you hear about like toxic masculinity or this. Why is the idea of being a man kind of like shunned in modern society?
The jails and prisons today are overloaded and full of toxic
Mm-hmm.
masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And my judgment, my opinion is it comes from rage and anger.
Mm.
And if you go back far enough from those two emotions, a lot of it would be fear,
Mm-hmm.
scared, tears. Yeah. My dad never said, I love you. I never heard that
Mm-hmm.
until he was literally ready to take his last breath. Yeah.
Mm.
Straight up. When he was dying, I got to say two things to him that I always wanted to say. One was, I forgive you.
Mm.
And the other one is, I love you.
Mm.
And he came back with, I love you.
Wow.
And I was probably around late 50s, early 60s at that point.
Okay. That's a life, almost a lifetime of holding
So
those emotions.
I sensed that, like I said, a lot of this stuff is just, it's rage, absolute rage. I still experience anger. I mean, I would like to think I've gotten to the point where I kind of know how to deal with it a little better, so it doesn't come out sideways
Mm.
and be directed to somebody that I don't want it to be directed to.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when you were talking about the boy in Africa.
Yeah.
He's sitting there full of fear, right?
Uh,
But there's a 20 men around him, and they have his back, or they're gonna guide him. They're gonna kind of usher him through. But it seems like in the modern world, I can experience it myself. Maybe you've experienced it. The people in these inner cities, they're full of rage and anger, but underline all that, it's really fear. So they're
uh,
really stuck in the fear of life, of what it means to be a man, of to have responsibility, to own take ownership of your actions.
uh.
And so.
Yeah, fear is a very powerful, powerful emotion.
Mhm.
And again, like I said, I find that one thing I've gotten out of men's work, amongst others, is about ownership.
Mm.
If I don't own it, it owns me. It can be a subtle line, but it also can be a dangerous, powerful line.
Mhm.
I choose to own it. I mean, our psyche, I don't believe can just say, "Well, I'll never be mad again."
Mhm.
That ain't gonna happen.
Sure.
You know, that's all shadow work stuff.
Okay.
You know, shadow work's another whole dimension in
For
itself.
another
Something,
episode.
a place that I've learned a lot. Yeah.
So going back to those first and at Mentone, Alabama.
Right.
Um, what was what did you feel? What did you take away that you didn't have before after that first experience? And then, where can people access this 30 years later, or is it still going on?
Yeah. Well, I went and did the Mentone thing. I'm terrible with time frames, but I went there probably, I want to say 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
It was once a year. Yeah. It is no longer. Um, but there, even when I was there, like the last couple of times I was there, this friend of mine and I, buddy of mine, went with me. We had heard about this other thing that was going on. It was called the Mankind Project,
Okay.
New Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And, we thought, well, maybe that's something to look into, because this isn't going to be happening anymore. Because it was kind of dwindling off. So we looked into that. And there just happened to be a couple of people on the Cape who were involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I contacted a couple of them and went through the whole thing. Ended up, becoming involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a weekend initiation. The other thing I say, when I say initiation, I mean, I get little red flags coming up because I realize that that can also have kind of a bad rap, mainly due to, either hardcore biker gangs
Mm-hmm.
or colleges,
College fraternity stuff.
fraternity
Yep.
stuff, where
Exactly.
people end up like dying, because they want to become part of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I became involved with Mankind, did the initiation for the weekend, enjoyed it. I'd done quite a few men's gatherings previous to this, so it was just a natural kind of thing to fall into. And it was, kind of dark and kind of scary and kind of light and kind
Mm.
of wonderful,
Mm.
and kind of all those things. I was directly involved with that for the better part of 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then just made a decision to not do that one anymore directly. And that's when I came and found you. Yeah,
Yeah. And at that point, I was in this infancy. I had this callings urge. It was brought about by many things. In the beginning, I just felt like something was missing. And then by the time I actually got the courage enough to be like, okay, I'm going to start this group, soon after I found out that I was going to be a father. And
right.
and that really started to change my concept of what it means to be a man. Prior to that, I was living for myself. Then I got a partner. Then I got married, and then things changed a bit. But then this concept of being a father really made me start thinking about things differently. And I was doing a group for an organization we provide a service for, and it was on a men's group, and I got this concept of the initiation, and I was writing some things down, and then I came across some different authors and kind of connected into the work that you've been talking about in the Iron John story, and yeah, it's really opened up, and I realized that I couldn't really teach what I didn't know. So I can receive some of this stuff through reading and learning and stuff like that, but you talked about this time in history before the Industrial Revolution, with the man and his son on the tractor,
There you go.
and I've realized through these groups, having older men, having men from different backgrounds, different perspectives, being in touch, being in person with them, and letting my guard down of this resistance or this or that, and being open to not knowing has really been the learning process for me through this experience too. Maybe do you want to touch on anything with about that story, or that you
The
were
story about the tractor
yeah.
and all that, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, pre-industrial revolution. That's. in here somewhere. I kind of forgot whether I told you about it or not. I guess I did. In the old days, Dad would be a farmer, and he'd be out plowing the fields, and his son would be sitting next to him. Maybe jumping out of the tractor and getting the rocks out of the way, or doing stuff like that, and then helping him plant, helping him raise the animals that they have, get the eggs from the chickens. Just the whole family and the whole father kind of thing was way more connected. And then all of a sudden, the farm didn't work anymore, so Dad had to go to work, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever, have breakfast, go to work. The child would, go to school, come back, and then the father would come in at, 6, 7 o'clock at night, be tired, whooped, whatever, and want to eat, just go to bed.
Hmm.
So basically, the kid's only seeing the father walking in and out the door
Yeah.
and eat food. So that whole, male initiation thing really just crashed
Yeah. Well, it's
to almost non-existence. I mean, I see parents today and I see fathers today acting a little differently
hmm
today. They're putting more into spending time with their sons and their daughters.
yeah.
Whether it's boating or fishing or whatever it is, going to the movie, mowing the lawn. But they're kind of bringing that into play again. So my sense is that overall it's having an effect. Slow,
Yeah.
maybe, but better slow than nothing.
Although still today in this kind of current day, it can almost be a luxury to have that time to spend.
Right.
Um, so really, a lot has changed from the man on the tractor and working for his family, and all of the efforts were going towards kind of the family unit, and then to working in a factory or an industry or
Right.
whatever it was, and that really changed the dynamic and kind of put us where we're at today. And I think a lot of people younger in their 40s, maybe 30s, even 20s now are, like you said, they're starting to do some introspection, looking at some of this concept big now of intergenerational trauma, and like looking at how this has passed down through the generations, and really anger and rage in on the male lineage seems to be the one of the only things that has passed down,
Yeah,
um,
sure.
or more so than any of the other positive attributes. And
Mhm.
so like how do you think today in 2025, like how can a man recreate that connection to his son or to the next generation, and how can he be healed and get back into the in alignment with his masculinity?
Well, realize
Hmm.
it's a good one.
Hmm.
First, you got to realize that it needs to happen or
Yes.
that you want it to happen.
Okay.
A lot of people are unconscious.
Sure.
It more than likely never will.
Hmm.
So if you come to that realization that you want to change and you want this to happen, then just reach out. There's people, there's places that will guide you.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's been an inner journey for myself. I've learned a lot about myself through this process. I did I have realized through relationships and all of this stuff that something was missing, and I started to seek it out, and I had to be really vulnerable. I had to be
Right.
vulnerable with other men, with taking ownership for my behavior and my emotions, and I still find myself in anger and at times rage. It was described to me recently the difference between the two, but but that anger, I realize, behind it is the fear, and there's a lot of not unknown things of what about this, what if that, whether it's in raising a family, whether it's in getting a career, whether it's moving on with your life, being in a position to get a partner. There's a lot of men that I've spoken to recently that have some struggles with that. I think coming together and being supportive and going through some of these kind of initiation processes, getting men of the three generations, the grandfather, the father, and the son. I mean, also too, prior to this more modern age, Europe, even in the United States and all over the world, there was those three generations living likely in the same
Same house
household.
does.
And what kind of impact did that have, and how has it been removed? In today's day and age, you don't see that much anymore. The kids are scattered, grandparents are in a nursing home, or whatever it is.
Like I said, a huge part of it is realizing that you want to, change, do
Hmm.
something different, make something happen. Then I would invite you to do some sort of self-development stuff.
Hmm.
And before all that stuff, you got to be brave. It's part of being a man.
Yeah.
You got to be brave to do these things.
Hmm.
You got to be able to walk through fear.
Yes. So if there was, one thing you'd want to share with people, or anything else, kind of to take away, something that you want to say or share something, what would it be?
I mean, I think I my feeling is that what I just said, own it.
Yes.
Realize you want to change, you want something different. You want a connection that's scary or whatever, and then be brave and then, look into self-development. This keeps coming up. It's just a little quote. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Hmm.
No truer words have ever been spoken, you
Yes.
know? So my sense is that, if you want to get out of that circle, you got to do something different.
Yeah, I've always said you won't know a different way until you go a different way.
Uh,
We meet every week, Wednesday at 6:30, sometimes in Hyannis, sometimes by a fire. We'll be continuing to do that moving forward. It was a pleasure having a conversation with you, Ted. I'm
uh,
sure this won't be the last one. And we thank you very much.
Thank you.